To draw the head and understand its movement, we first start by drawing a sphere to establish the basic structure. I draw the center line through the middle of the sphere. Here, the head is slightly tilted, so the center line is slightly angled. Then, I draw the brow line perpendicular to the center line. For the nose line, I place it around the lower third of the sphere. I take the distance from the nose to the brow and use the same distance to determine the hairline. Then, using the same distance again, we can establish the facial slice. This is the basic Loomis face structure that you may have memorized. But once you understand how it works, you can eventually skip some of these construction steps. In this reference, the face is looking straight forward, but the head is looking downward. So, I move the nose line downward according to the amount of movement. Using the same amount of movement, I move the brow line downward, and then I adjust the hairline as well. Next, I take the distance from the nose and use the same distance to establish the chin line. Because the head is looking downward, the visible height of the chin becomes slightly smaller, so I reduce its height by a small amount. Now, I connect the chin to the sphere, starting from the middle of the facial slice until I reach the chin line. I try to transfer the shape of the chin as accurately as possible from the reference I am drawing. Then, I continue the jawline from the middle of the facial slice toward the slice that ends at the brow line. I adjust the distance between the hairline, brow, and ears. The ears will also be slightly tilted because of the head's movement. I repeat the same process on the left side. I determine the distance between the hairline and the ear, then continue the shape toward the top of the head. Keep in mind that the hair should extend above the end of the sphere because the hair follows the shape of the skull. After that, I add the internal structure and major directions of the hair. Then I move down toward the hair around the neck and define its position in relation to the main facial mass. At this point, the construction needs to be accurate. This is also where you should be able to judge whether the face is correctly constructed or not, because the width of the nose will depend on the overall width of the face. So I establish 2 points to determine the approximate width of the face. Then I check them carefully using proportion and comparison to make sure the width is correct. Next, I draw 2 lines following the direction of the center line toward the eye line. I divide the distance between the nose and the brow into 3 equal sections. The eye line is located around the upper third of this distance. However, because the face is looking downward, the eye line will move slightly upward according to the movement of the head. Now, I can start constructing the nose. Since the nose is pointing downward, I first establish its lower plane, then the upper plane. I erase the middle section of the eye line and adjust its direction slightly upward to accommodate the projection of the nose. After establishing the correct proportion, I can begin adding the facial details. I start the nose from the wings. The beginning of each wing is positioned around the nose line. Then, the extension of the nose, which is the cartilage, comes down toward the nose line because the face is looking downward. I also draw the separation between the wing and the front cartilage, showing where these structures connect and how they appear on the skin. Next, I follow the line coming from the nose wing toward the eye and begin constructing the tear duct. Then I draw the lower eyelid, followed by the upper eyelid. The upper eyelid will determine how open the eye is. I also make sure that the width of the eye is correct in relation to the width of the nose. When measuring the eye, I measure the actual eye opening without including the eyelashes or the thickness of the eyelids. After that, I add the thickness of the eyelids and the shadow underneath the eye. Then I reinforce the eyeline and add the eyelashes. The eyelashes along the upper eyelid are longer toward the outer corner and gradually become shorter as they approach the tear duct. For the iris, the upper part is slightly covered by the upper eyelid, while a larger portion is hidden underneath it. This gives the eye a more relaxed or slightly sleepy appearance. Then, I construct the eyebrow in relation to the eye. I use light, straight strokes without pressing too hard on the pencil. After establishing the basic direction, I add the thickness and mass of the eyebrow. For the left eye, I repeat the same process as a mirror of the right eye. I make sure to stay aligned with the eye line because it helps me maintain the correct angle and perspective. Now let's move on to the mouth. I divide the remaining distance between the nose and the chin into 2 equal sections, after accounting for the reduction in chin height that we made earlier. Then I divide the upper half into 2 equal parts. This gives me the approximate position of the upper lip. I start by drawing the V-shaped structure of the upper lip. Then I determine the thickness of the upper lip. After that, I establish the central line of the mouth. Its width should relate to the width of the nose. Then I complete the shape of the upper lip and move on to the lower lip. The lower lip is generally thicker than the upper lip, so I give it noticeably more volume. Finally, we continue adding any missing details to the portrait. I also refine the internal structure of the hair, because earlier I was mainly establishing its position in relation to the facial slice and the brow line. And with that, we have reached the end of today's lesson. I hope this step-by-step process helps you understand not only how to draw the face, but also how to construct it correctly and understand its movement. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next lesson.